Uh, I want to talk about our ground rules for dynamic groups. I want to talk about the nurture identity evolution. Uh, Remember, our ground rules for dynamic groups are we talked about be all in last week, and we have talked about, we've gone through all of them briefly, but the one I want to talk about this week is nurture identity evolution. So what it says on there is as we grow, we become more integrated, more connected versions of ourselves. So what that means is basically we're becoming more in integrity with ourselves. We're becoming more authentic. And that's kind of the goal here, is to become more authentic and become more in integrity, like with our bodies needs and our minds needs, and all of these things, so that we can just be more aware and feel better, so that we can then show up in the world the way that we want to. So as a dynamic group member, you release past conditioning, the quote unquote I know who I am, and instead embrace your growth, the I pay attention to who I'm becoming. So what that means is basically, instead of having a fixed mindset of like, oh, I am this way, so I can't really change that about me, or I can't really change these different things, and instead embrace the growth mindset of I am paying attention to who I'm becoming and who I'm wanting to become, and that kind of thing. It's a very different mindset, and the one that's fixed tends to lead us down a path of uh, self-criticism, because it's like, oh, I'm this way, why can't I just be different? And instead, if we're embracing a growth mindset, it's like, oh, like I did this thing, but I don't necessarily have to do that in the future. But I can also be really gentle with myself at the same time. So that's kind of how we want to go about nurturing our identity evolution. So collectively, we hold each other to the standard of our emerging potential. This enables the more evolved, more integrated, more interconnected identity to take root. So that means we're basically all interconnected with each other. So instead of holding each other to who we used to be, or to, outdated versions of ourselves, that happens a lot when we, you know, we've talked about when we go back home or back to a place that we were in the past, our past selves. A lot of times we get sucked back into that. So in a dynamic group, we want to help each other grow in a way that isn't holding each other back to like our old identities. We want to be able to help each other move forward in our new identities. So that's what we are going to be working on together as a group. We're going to be talking about how to become more authentic to ourselves, or become closer to who we really are. So instead of holding each other to who we used to be, we're going to weave new levels of integrity into a more integrated person, which will then help us create more integrated culture within our own lives and our own communities. So that's a little bit about nurturing identity evolution.